everyone, welcome back to the Homosexual Agenda. I'm the host, Brian. Hi. So this week we're going to be talking about adulthood and the transition between being a teen in high school and all that jazz, and then transitioning from that into being an adult and what that's kind of like and what people often think of and all that good stuff. So to start off, because I actually have an outline now and plan things out a little bit better than the first time, so hopefully less rambling. But to talk about the beginning of this kind of idea, where we start off with the kind of school life and high school and all that, um, you you start off and you do think about being an adult, but you don't connect it to where you are now. And at least for me, that's kind of how it is where you're a high school student and you're 13, 14, 15, whatever, um and you kind of go, okay, I'm going to turn, like, I'm going to be 18, I'm going to be an adult and all this is going to happen. um but you never really you see it as a thing that's going to happen, but you never really internalize the fact that I'm pretty much an adult. This is something that's happening. And um, that's kind of something that really creeps upon you because you'll just kind of be like thinking about it. And suddenly I'm sitting here and it still doesn't feel like it's a connection that I'm gonna have, but I'm basically less than a year away from being an adult, but it just still hasn't clicked, and it's weird, it's wild, it's a lot. Um, but there's just some days where it's such an alienized concept to me that I'm almost an adult. I genuinely feel like I just started high school and I just got out of middle school kind of thing. Like I can still feel like I was spending last week in the lunchroom over at my middle school in eighth grade, and I'm chilling with my friends from middle school, but I'm a senior, and fun fact, senior. Um, but you just don't think about it, and you just don't feel grown up, and so you refuse. You don't refuse to acknowledge it, but I refuse to acknowledge it. So we're gonna say you refuse to acknowledge it, okay? Um, and it was just things kind of. I don't know. I think part of the reason that it's such a denied kind of fact is because it's simpler. Not being an adult is easier. It's because you're still learning and maturing and all that. And so to to say, "Oh, I'm going to be an adult soon," it implies a lot more of a workload that you might be taking on. And when you're in freshman or sophomore, junior, whatever year, there's a lot of not only differences to the level of work you're doing, but the frequency of it all. Um, Back in earlier years, it's just like, especially this was mainly the thing in elementary school, and I did it in middle school, and it's still something that kind of happens with high school. Is you you wake up, you go to school, do what you need to do, and then you just go home. There's no in between. There's nothing else. Excuse me. Um, oh my god. By the way, if I like burp or whatever, I got a soda from Jack in the Box, so not sponsored, but it's good. Um, but it was just simpler. You would do your stuff and go home, and you wouldn't have to think about anything else. It was you'd go to school and think about school, and then do whatever you wanted for the rest of the time. Um, but it changes at some point, and this mainly happens either late junior year for me, or definitely it will happen in your senior year, that's for sure, where you go home and you kind of notice this. I especially notice this because it happens to friends or people that they know. I didn't really do it as much. I'm still kind of in that cycle of go home and forget every responsibility I have, honestly. um, but you realize one day that everyone has made plans. You, I would message someone, but they have a job, or someone else is looking up scholarships or applying to colleges, and everyone has to do something now. People go home and do a second type of work for themselves, and it just, you don't see it coming, but it just happens, and before you know it, everyone has to do stuff. No one's free anymore, and it does suck, but I mean, on to be more positive and less serious and a little bit down about it, all it does make the times that you do get to hang out a lot more special, I guess, is the way to put it. Where you just kind of enjoy things. Um, but it's it's just something else to realize that you're not kids that can just go and chill out all the time, and people have things to do, and that's, like, that's all right, of course. You can't, no one plans anything really. Like, no one was like, oh yeah, like, I'm totally, it's so important to me that I have to do this job, like that's totally what I want to do instead than hang out, but it's just it's just weird, not getting that chance anymore. Um, and it's also just in preparation. Not everyone's like, obviously getting jobs is to get money and to get an application in for college. It's, you're preparing. You're getting ready to get, like, your own life. And that's kind of scary because you at least, again, this is all from my experience. I'm gonna try and not say at least for me, but uh, imagine that for everything I'm saying, at least for me, because I'm not trying to speak on anyone else's part. But for me, I I never, like, I always think, oh yeah, I'm gonna like move out and do this stuff and that stuff, and that's great. But not many people think about either how soon it's gonna happen or the actual fact that they have to do that. Um, it's just kind of something that, again, it creeps up on you, and you never really internalize it or connect it to yourself, and it can kind of get a hold of you. And even now, when you get time to relax, you can't anymore. Once you reach a certain age, there's this kind of trait or lesson that you learn, and I first noticed it. We had talked about it with the choir and theater teacher at our school, where when you become an adult, your days off aren't days off. It's, they're days that you can do work that's not your main job. Um, there'll be times where it'll be your day off, but you have to go and do something at the DMV, or oh, I have to go do shopping, or just various things that, instead of you take a day off and you enjoy it, it's now, oh, I have to take a day off because I need to get this or that done. It's basically you having to take time out of your work so that you have time to do work. And I mean, it pays off, definitely. Like, I'm not being like, don't do your taxes, enjoy life. Blah, blah, blah. God, why did never mind. Oh my God. But it's just one of those things where that's not what I'm saying, but you gotta, you just kind of notice that it's not the same day off that you used to have. It's not the same sleep in, wake up and have cereal at 2 p.m. because that's breakfast to you now. Um, it's like, I don't know about anyone else, but I noticed that as I got older, it was, I would, I was unable to sleep in as late, or even if I did sleep in later, I would feel kind of not guilty about it, but guilty about it. I would wake up and be like, oh my God, I slept through half the day, and that's awful. Um, and so it just really like your view on things and time management really just changes when you learn how much you can't really afford to mismanage your time. Um, and it's just kind of when you get older, things just aren't the same. But I have to bring up this phrase that I brought up in the last thing about risks. Um, is that nothing stays the same, but that's not a bad thing. I mentioned that in the last episode, and I'm gonna repeat it here because I kind of knew that this kind of would have a few, not depressing, but depressing, um, kind of things to think about sometimes. So understand that changes happen, but that's not, like that's perfectly fine. And you just kind of have to understand that we do grow up. We grow up to enjoy new freedoms as we gave up the old freedoms we had. We get choices now of what we actually get to go into, what we get to grow into. We can, and I have this in my outline, I have this one phrasing thing, and it's kind of pretentious, but I'm going to say it anyway because I feel like it's really cool. But we have the power to choose to change ourselves or change the world or change nothing at all, change neither, and just be. And even then, once we're an adult, no one ever tells you you have to. It might not be a good choice, but that's one of the freedoms is that you really don't have to do anything, but that's on you, and any consequences will be on you. Um, and that's something you really do need to think about is that because when you're a kid, you you can afford to make mistakes, you can afford to mismanage time, but when you get older, there's no one to cushion your fall. You might have your parents, maybe, but there's no guarantee of anything. And that's another thing I mentioned in the last episode was that nothing's guaranteed. There's nothing ever that will tell you that something's a guaranteed thing. And that's kind of something to think about and to keep in mind. And something else I want to bring in um, is I do tarot cards. I do fortune telling and all that. And one card that kind of came into mind when I was thinking about the process of becoming an adult was the death card. Um, and if I can edit it in, I'll put up a picture so you can see what it looks like so I can reference things in the picture. So look at your screens now if you want to see a cool picture. Um, so for this segment, I wanted to compare the death card in tarot to make a point. If you look at the Rider Waite tarot card version for death, it honestly, every time the death card comes up, it'll scare most people. And it does seem intimidating once you look at it. You see like the skeleton Grim Reaper guy on a horse, and it's most people freak out when they see it. But what they don't realize is that it's not that scary and it's not what you think. And when you look at the card, don't focus on the Grim Reaper. That's not the point of the card. Instead, focus on the setting sun in the background behind him. That's the actual meaning of the card, is the end of one cycle and the start of a new one. That's adulthood. It's not the end of the world. It's not death. It's a whole new cycle. And it's basically your teenage childhood coming to an end and your adult life starting. It's not something to be scared of, and it will be scary when you first see it, just like the death card. But don't be afraid of it. It's basically exactly adulthood. It's intimidating, scary, but misrepresented. When in reality, it's hopeful and it's the start of a new day. So, that's my little tidbit. So, I have this divided into sections, and for this last section, I actually asked some people, and I made a post about it, where I was asking people to submit questions they might have on this kind of topic. And so the first question is going to be from my friend Kayla. So, Kayla, if you're listening, hi. This is for you. Kayla had asked, "What was your expectation?" God, I can't speak. And I'm supposed to run a podcast. Kayla asked, "What was your expectations and what is the reality of it? Like, are they similar or like drastically different? Also, do you feel prepared to grow up?" And this is a, like a really good thing to think about. My expectations of adulthood it was probably similar to what most people thought is it was, oh man, I'm in school and I'm gonna so dumb and I take up so much of my life. This is awful, but I'm gonna grow up and I'm gonna party and I'm gonna do all these things and it's gonna be awesome and not gonna have to do any of this. And the reality is there's a lot you have to do, at least in the first few years. It's not just like, oh, I'm a child and now I'm an adult, so I get to drop everything and it's instant. And no, it's not that. It's a lot more preparation. Um, it's not drastically different. If you were smart, like I kind of wasn't, you totally could have made the right preparations to have that kind of luxury. Um, but I'm the kind of kid that puts off everything and technically hasn't actually applied anywhere, kind of thing. But I mean, I do have an exception, or exception. I got accepted to a college, kind of thing, and I already kind of know where I'm going and what I'm actually gonna do. So it's not totally drastically different because I kind of am going in unprepared. And as for the final part, if I feel prepared to grow up, I think I I am. But if I could request anything, I think I would ask for more time because it definitely is something that will catch you off guard if you're not ready. You'll in your head make fun of all those kids that were like, I'm gonna apply to a college at like 12 and get ready because I'm gonna be an adult and get into all these colleges, and you'll laugh and you'll be like, that's just chill out, because that's what I said. But joke's on you and me, because that's the smart thing to do. Um, so would love to have more time, but I think I'm about as ready as I'll ever be. Um, so there's Kayla's question. The next question is from my friend Angel. He asks, "How has your senior year gone so far? What's your goal for after high school? How stressful is senior year? And is there anything you want the seniors to do to celebrate?" And my senior year so far has been really, really, really busy because in our for anyone who doesn't actually know me at school, um, I'm the head of the sound department for our theater, and so I have to train someone to take my place, or else there's not going to be anyone to do sound stuff. So not only do I have to be busy to train someone else to take over for me, so I have to show them all the ropes, but I have to do my job this year as the sound guy and work soundboards and do all that. Um, and not only that, but I do stage manage for our plays, and so I have to be at school until like 4:30 or 5, and sometimes even 6. And ooh, yikes, soda. Um, I have to be there like every day. So, and I'm also taking AP government classes and college level English and math classes. So it does take up a lot of time that I mean, I have, but you gotta look for that time to have it, kind of thing. And my goal for after high school, going on to the second question from Angel, um, I had wanted to work in the stage business industry, either as a stagehand or in some department, because first off, it's Vegas, so there's a lot of work for technical people out there, um, and so that'll be kind of my like it's good pay, so that'll probably be my main money maker. um, and then how stressful my senior year is, it's it was stressful because I had to make up credits my first semester, and so I did that. But once I did that, it was fairly smooth. It was only the only stress was of the obligations I had signed up for, but it's nothing along the lines really as far as stress goes of like, oh, I need to do this or else I'm gonna like die. So it's not too bad, but at times it can get fairly heavy. Um, and the last bit, anything I would want the seniors to do to celebrate. I think seniors are all different in classes. Like there's always different social groups, just in different forms. But it would be really cool if, like, I think just having all the seniors appreciate what they had and having them just kind of throw their own parties and hang out whenever they can. Like, I think that even though it's a smaller form of celebration, I think that's kind of the best to hope for because, in all honesty, I think a giant, like, seniors party would be awful. Like, that's a horrible idea. No one should ever do that because that's, like, invite your friends group if you want because that's cool. That's how you should throw a party. But in general, just, you know, I think having your own personal celebration with the people that you have stuck with and ended up with after school, um, is the most important thing. Is kind of just enjoy who stuck by you and who you stuck with. So yeah. Next up, and finally, we have our friend Alma. She didn't bring up a question, but she has something she wanted me to address, and that is, with adulthood comes a lot more freedoms and stereotypically that kind of thing, but nobody really gives you rules or guidelines to the freedoms. You just have to go in blind. So she's wondering if there's stress by that or any like different emotions for that. Um, and definitely like I agree with that. There with adulthood, it's on you to prepare. There are people who will help out a little bit, and like teachers will kind of give you a small heads up, but no one really writes a book for you. No one gives you guidelines on what to do, and that's a little stressful. But uh, it's going in blind is definitely a really good way to put it because it's how a lot of people are. There's a few people who prepare, but that's all on them. They did it themselves, and they're just really good at understanding things. Like it's really hard for me because I could probably read a whole, like just a paragraph, a quick summary of how like something works, like I don't know, like taxes or whatever, and it would take me like a long time to even comprehend what the vocabulary means, but to understand the process and all that, like it's something that I know I'm gonna have to like double check and ask my parents about because no one, there's no home ec anymore. There's no classes that show you how to balance a checkbook. It's all things that you just have to like learn online or learn from your family, and that's kind of something that's really messed up with at least our school district is that they don't really, I don't know anywhere that offers that anymore. I can't speak for other school districts, but I think fairly common is the absence of home ec anymore. But it's it's definitely like an awful thing to have to go in blind to adulthood. But it happens, and I think the it is stressful, but I think the better term for it, I think, because it's stress, but there's other stuff involved, and I think that would fall under a sort of sensory overload where you just kind of there's so much to do, so much to see. So I mean, what's wrong with taking the back streets kind of thing? Like I literally just did that, and I'm so sorry, but you're gonna have to live with it, and so will I. Um, but uh, there's a lot more opportunities for you as an adult, and it can easily overwhelm you. And I think that's one of those things that you just kind of um, like. It's a lot, and that's where the sensory overload comes in. Is you have to just kind of keep in mind that there's a lot. So I think if you narrow down your scope of what you want, it'll really help. Because otherwise, there's just so much that it can easily overwhelm you, and that's just make sure you understand what you want and analyze the situation and the outcomes and the risks. Um, uh, and that's kind of it. So, thank you to Kayla, Angela, and Alma for your questions and comments and concerns. Um, I didn't expect this honestly. After just episode one, I'm like real quick note is I'm so happy that like a lot of you guys enjoy this. I was not expecting this to be anything more than like, oh yeah, I posted a podcast, and then my closest friends will listen to it and tell me it's good, and then everyone will be like, oh yeah, I think I listened to that once or twice maybe. But so I really, really appreciate everything and all the people that are watching this. Like I only got like I know it's only like 4 likes, and like compared to other people, they would be like small amounts of views. But my first video like is at 50 views, and I couldn't be more happy. Like it's like incredible. Like I wasn't expecting all of that. Like that's more than I ever expected from anything. So thank you guys so much. And just like don't forget to check in, and on my Facebook I'll have uh, little places where you can what's it called, uh, answer polls that I have. Like I'll ask questions on what um, you would like me to talk about in the next episode, or if there's anything you want me to address. And yeah, so I think this about wraps it up. Going an extra 10 minutes, so um, yeah. Uh, this is Ryan from the Homosexual Agenda. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.